Since becoming opposition leader, Tony Abbott has engaged in the big lie, an often repeated phrase which eventually is seen as the truth. The big lie, a classic mind manipulation tactic. The US Office of Strategic Services, now the CIA, did a profile of Hitler during World War II, saying Hitler's primary rules were never allow the public to cool off, never admit a fault or a wrong, never concede that there might be some good in your enemy. People will believe a big lie sooner than a little one, and if you repeat it frequently enough, people will sooner or later believe it. Tony Abbott is no Hitler, but the liberal national political tactics are dubious at best.
It's a bad tax. It's a bad tax. It's a bad tax. Great big new tax. Great big new tax. New tax. Great big new tax. If you want to avoid these new taxes, these great big new taxes, you've got to change the government. That this is a dishonest and incompetent federal government. That this is a government which is utterly incompetent, utterly and comprehensively incompetent when it comes to protecting our borders. Exhibit A for incompetence is the disaster in our detention centres and the complete loss of control of our borders. The challenge for this Prime Minister is finally to run a competent government.
It's the most complex change in our history, and it's being managed by the most incompetent government in our history.
And as far as I'm concerned, we are a great country and a great people let down by a bad government. We are a great country, but we're a great country that is being let down by a bad government.
And there are millions of you who are sick of being ripped off by a bad government.
I think the public are far more likely to conclude that a bad government has been exposed by a whistleblower. Carbon tax. This is a bad tax based on a lie. Plan for a cleaner environment based on real action, not on a great big new tax.
And a great big new tax on mining.
Everything will be more expensive under this bad tax based on a lie. That this was a government that was run by faceless men.
At the moment, he has a leader who is so spooked by the faceless men that she cannot defend one of her own better ministers.
I think that the Prime Minister of this country should be chosen by the people and not by the faceless men. The only way we can get real change in this country is with an election.
The quickest way to get rid of this debt will be to get rid of this government. Yeah. That we don't need a carbon tax, and we do need an election.
The government gets its spending under control, because if the government wasn't borrowing $100 million every single day, there would be much less pressure on interest rates. So I think the problem here is not so much the banks. The problem here is a treasurer who is a dud. Yes, but the Howard government was not borrowing $100 million a day. A government which is out there borrowing $100 million every single day is a government which is not managing the economy to the benefit of Australian home buyers and the forgotten families of our nation.
That this Prime Minister has no answers when it comes to our borders, and that her Malaysia solution was a walk on the policy wild side.
And that is my problem. My problem is that this Prime Minister is fundamentally out of touch with the Australian people.
As the leader of a party, you can be the chieftain of a tribe, but as the Prime Minister of the country, you have to be a leader for the whole nation, and this is something that the Prime Minister just doesn't get. This is a Prime Minister who has not grown into the role. If anything, she has shrunk in office, and this is a tragedy for Australia.
We will oppose the carbon tax in opposition and we will rescind it in government.
The next election is going to be a referendum on the carbon tax. Any Labor Party which persists in opposition in supporting a carbon tax is a Labor Party which is arrogant and out of touch. That this is a government which is taxing people too much, which is regulating people too much, and which is setting Australian against Australian, and it just shouldn't be doing that, and this government is getting it wrong on three important counts. First of all, it's overtaxing us, particularly with the carbon tax. Secondly, it's over-regulating us, particularly with the Fair Work changes. And thirdly, it's dividing us.
Have you met Archbishop Pell during the election campaign?
Not that I can recall.
Not that you can recall, because we believe that you've had at least one meeting with him quite recently.
Well,
you don't recall that? At the Presbytery in Sydney?
Actually, now that you mention it, I did meet with Cardinal Pell. So what?